I'm usually pretty hit and miss when it comes to open world games. I mean, I completely understand why the idea of immersing yourself in a giant sprawling environment can be so appealing to some people, but there's only so many times I can liberate an outpost, take down a radio tower, check the map to see how many more things are left to do, finding out the map is huge, but not much to do in it. Games like these tend to fall in those same traps a lot nowadays. Granted, not all of them, but for me it's become kinda difficult to really differentiate between them. And I think a lot of that is due in part to the Far Cry series, or at least recent installments. I played Far Cry 3, 4, and especially Primal to death, but it becomes almost impossible to not notice the old Ubisoft pattern after a while. The original king of the radio tower. And it's this same apprehension that I felt going into Far Cry 5. Will this finally be the game to break that oh-so-familiar pattern? Right off the bat, it's clear to see that Far Cry 5 is going for something a little different. There's a lot of subtext going on in this game, none of it really that subtle. One half of it feeling like Bioshock Infinite, surrounded by lunatics who seem to be blurring the line between religion and cult. The other half is a nice big chunk of finna woke political commentary, with characters saying, "You think I'm crazy? Look who's running the place! You've been reading the papers too, right? Look at the world we're leaving for our children! Whoa, free will is an illusion, man!" And you know, it really makes you think. As crazy as this game is, it shines a spotlight on the current political climate, really asking the questions of whether this is really fiction at all. Something like that, I don't know, whatever. I will say though, I actually quite like the villains. Ever since Farce in Far Cry 3, the series has kinda become the crazy, goofy villain franchise, and it's not really worked out that well for it. Pagan Min in Far Cry 4 was just not really a good villain at all, really. But Joseph Seed and his little gang of cohorts are pretty good. I actually remember the individual qualities of each member of his family, and Joseph himself is definitely quite unnerving. I actually found them quite memorable and intimidating, and in that sense it was good to see them break away from something that was starting to become a bit of a cliché trademark for them. On the flip side, the other characters are okay. You're not really playing as a character this time round, you're just a faceless military guy who people call Rookie. The game starts off with letting you choose a gender, but it really has no bearing on the game at all. Either way, you're just a faceless Rookie. Kind of a shame, but I don't really care, I guess, to be honest. Overall, the story's actually pretty good. It gets surprisingly quite dark at times, especially in the final act, and even if it is slightly aping on well-trodden themes and current trends, it establishes itself pretty firmly from the other games, which is definitely a good thing. But as far as the gameplay goes, it really isn't gonna blow you away if you've played a Far Cry game before. The game itself seems self-aware enough about repeating that same open-world pattern.
I know what you're thinking, and no, I ain't gonna have you climbing towers all over the county for me, so don't worry.
But you do start to notice just how many outposts and towers there are regardless. Then you start noticing yourself falling into the habit of crafting weapons, hunting animals, and staring at skill trees. Yeah, a fact of the matter is, it's still a Ubisoft game. At its very core, the gameplay really is just more of the same, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. If there's anything the Far Cry games are good at, it's how it allows you to evolve and level up your character, going from feeling pretty vulnerable and weak to eventually becoming a one-man army. By the end of the game, it does feel pretty good liberating outposts with all these tools at your disposal. But the way this game tackles story progression is quite interesting. The world of Montana is split into sections, each of which being commandeered by a different member of Joseph Seed's family. Liberate enough outposts, get as many people on your side, and complete enough missions, and they'll soon start to notice, and eventually intervene. What you essentially spend a lot of this game doing is trying to bring them out of hiding by overthrowing their land bit by bit. Deal with all the members of Joseph's family, lowering his defenses in the meantime. It's definitely interesting, but in a sense, a lot of the game does begin to feel like you're constantly grinding in a sense. There were times in the game when I would engage in a side quest or an objective, not because I really wanted to, but it would get me points that would tally up this bar a little bit more, and I'll progress a little bit more when it's full. Once I started looking at it that way, it did start to feel like a slight chore at times, and it did kind of make the story seem a little bit less intuitive, I guess. Nevertheless, the missions are fun enough, you've always got something to do, it's a game that will definitely keep you busy. Montana in this game is both impressively gigantic, while also being able to justify it well enough by filling it with things to do. On top of the story mode, the game is littered with side missions to the point where it's actually kind of intimidating to look at, really. That's a bloody lot of side missions. And there's also a neat little arcade mode where people upload their own maps and stages with their own objectives. I've yet to come across any community-made levels that are any good, but, you know, it's there if you're into that kind of thing, I guess. And all of these things are available in both single player and online co-op, which is super cool, and I've had a ton of fun playing this game with a friend. But I don't really think it'll take you too long before you realise just how many times you're repeating the same quests and objectives. Destroy all the silos, destroy all the towers, destroy all the church things, save all of the hostages, save the truck that's got hostages in it, take down the guys that it boils down to the same thing, really. Far Cry 5 is, unfortunately, a pretty problematic game. A few things about it really do pull it down for me. For one, although I still stand by my general praise of the story, I don't really like the way it weaves itself into the gameplay. To put it simply, Far Cry is just not very good at cutscenes. They don't know how to do it, they're not good. It's always baffling to me to see a first-person game also have first-person cutscenes, forcing me to wonder exactly why this couldn't have been gameplay instead. And if it does have to be a cutscene, why not use it to its fullest potential and, I don't know, make it not first person? Make it more cinematic, separate them more from the perspective that we've been used to in this game, and let us see who we're playing as a little bit more. There are little bursts in the gameplay where it does change perspective and do some cool little transitional things, and it looks really cool. I don't understand why they don't do more of this. Otherwise what you get is cutscene after cutscene of someone just standing there talking to you. There's no real visual element to these, there's nothing lost on you if you just looked away from the TV. It's just so weird to me why you would have cutscenes that are stylistically identical to the gameplay. It's so strange, and it's such a missed opportunity to not branch out and do something new. You know? I don't know. Ugh. And for the most part, you're not even able to skip cutscenes. Like, I have to watch most of these, I don't have a choice, so why not at least give me a little bit more to watch in the cinematography department? But it's even worse when these cutscenes hijack the gameplay. At certain points in the game, you'll be forced into the next chapter of the story, whether you're ready or not. Multiple times throughout the game, I was having fun free roaming, looking for collectibles, sometimes already doing a mission, and the game completely overtakes it and says, "No, you're doing this now." Well, it is baffling. I've never seen a game do that before, and it is just bloody infuriating, really. I mean, like I said, the story itself is fine, but I was about to collect a thing. Let me get to that in my own bloody time. Now I've got to do this mission that I didn't want to do, and I'll have to come all the way back here. I don't want to be doing this right now. Also, the game is pretty buggy. And you know what, yeah, I get it. It's a big game. There's going to be bugs. It's almost part of the charm at that point. But some of these are pretty, I don't know, noticeable, I guess. And sometimes these glitches would have a pretty annoying effect on the gameplay. There were times when I would clear a settlement of enemies, but the game didn't register that they were all gone. There were times when the game marked me down as abandoning and failing a mission, when I completely hadn't abandoned anything. Characters that I need to interact with that don't want anything to do with me.
I can't swim. I know who can't swim, but I need you to go get it for me.
And in one case, a character ran away from me and ended up falling through the floor, so I was never able to talk to them. And at that point, yeah, it starts to become a problem. Also, the game has microtransactions to buy vehicles, which is just kinda lame, really. I mean, it's optional, but There were plenty of times when I was just flat out not really feeling Far Cry 5. Again, it's fine, everything's there. Everything that I liked doing in the other games is still there, but I could still sense that I wasn't exactly having a blast. I was just kinda idly playing it, I guess, more tolerating it than enjoying it. And then I looked to the side to see how long I'd been playing for. It had been 8 hours somehow. And yet for some reason I still kept playing it, because there were still a few missions I had left to do before I turned it off. And I think that's really the best way to look at Far Cry 5, and perhaps Ubisoft games in general. They're absolutely not games that will challenge you mentally or stimulate you. They aren't going to impress you with anything or pull anything you don't already expect. They're the most acceptable, serviceable games on the planet, but they're good time killers. And I think that's really all they set out to be. It's one of those games that are good to play after a long day of work or something, you know, like a game that doesn't really demand too much brain power. A safe bet of a game to go on autopilot and sink a few hours into. It's comfortable, mindless fun, what I call a checklist game, where you're just essentially just ticking things off the map. Again, like I said, it's something that not all games do that well, and sometimes it can just be kind of a chore. The Far Cry games don't really do it too badly, and I think once you kind of gel with that and realise that the game isn't really interested in being more than that, it does start to work in its own way. Coupling that with what the game does with its villains and darker tone this time round, I'm tempted to say that this is the best entry in the series since Far Cry 3. If you've never been a fan of Far Cry, believe me, this is not going to turn you around. But if you're looking for something to lose yourself and kill some time in, Monana might just be the place to go. Hey everyone, thank you for watching my review. If you want to see more videos like this, then go to patreon.com/Farfetch'd. For only $1, you can see more content that I make and, put money into, so they'll be even better. And you can get a bunch of cool things, which you can find out if you look on the article on the site. You can find more info, I won't bombard you now. Also more videos too. Whoa, look at these, you can watch more videos. And, Facebook and Twitter, all that general stuff in the description, whatever, you get the point. Either way, that's the video. Thank you for watching. See you next time, I guess. Goodbye. How long am I doing this for?